Hi, this is Grover with Blue Collar Codes, Quick and Dirty, episode 11, going over scope. If you wish to follow along, you can find a link to the GitHub repository in the video summary, and there you will find episode11.py. So first things first is you need to understand what a namespace is, and it's basically a table of references that stores your variable names that you create and then their link or their reference to the object in memory. And scope is basically just how Python creates different scopes for different operations and different levels of your code. And those different namespaces are created and basically just called scope. So when Python performs a process called name resolution, which is its process of finding the value associated with your variable name you're using, it first looks in a local area, then enclosing, then global, then built-in scope. And if it can't find anything, it throws a name error. So you can find a lot more information in this file, but in order to showcase everything more concisely, I'm going to move over to a Scratch file so I can define everything out here and the output will be cleaner. So here again, the global namespace or scope is the top level part of your file, meaning there's no indentation, and here then X variable is at the global scope. And what this means is it's accessible by all parts of your program. And you'll know more about this in a few minutes here. So if I want to gain access to that value and print it directly, I can do that within this function. However, this function, when you're creating one, is creating a local scope that has its own local namespace. What that means is that for the name resolution in Python, this variable x, it's first going to search locally within this function for the variable x in the namespace. If it doesn't find it, then it's going to go one level up. And in this instance, since this function is created just underneath or just at the global scope, the next level up is the global scope. And so it's going to resolve and find the x equals 10, and then it'll print it. So we'll showcase that now. So here you have that it output the 10 because it found and resolved to the 10 on the global level. So now if I actually assign a different value to x, what happened here is that since this function definition has its own local scope, now I created the variable x name that's now associated with the integer 20. So when it goes through the process of name resolution, it's going to search for the x in the local scope, and this time it finds it and will output the 20. When you start to nest functions or heavily nest your scripts, then you have to be more careful about scope. So here, what you're going to find is that, again, remember the LEGB rule in that it first searches local, then enclosing, then global, then built-in. So right now, the function foo is actually enclosing the function bar here. And so when it resolves to find this x, it's going to search bar's local scope, not find it, and then it'll go up one to the enclosing scope for foo, and it'll find it and resolve to the 20. So what you should see here, output now, is the value 20 from this x. And so again, it just output that 20, it resolved and found that 20 in the closing scope. Now if I wanted to actually gain access to the global x to print that, what you would need to do from within this bar function is use the keyword global x. You're basically declaring that the x within this local scope is now going to be linked to the X on the global level. So from this point, you can either gain access to print it, or you can alter it, and it'll be true inside and outside the function. So you altered it here, and it'll actually reflect to be the global out there, which I will add a print down here to now print the X that resolves to the global level, and you'll find that it should print 230s now. So the other keyword that you can use is the nonlocal, which basically does a similar thing to global, but it will just go to the enclosing scope to resolve a name. And also make note that you can access the global variables. As long as you're not going to be assigning them, it'll resolve to that global variable, meaning you can do z equals x plus 10 and then print z, and here it'll automatically resolve to the global level when you want to do this. You don't have to declare global first in order to just gain access to the value, but if you wanted to gain access to the x in order to alter it, you have to use the global keyword. So here you should have, z will output to be 20 because it just accesses this object and then does the calculation, but since you're not trying to declare this variable or alter it, you can get away with it. And so that's a brief overview of scope. Again, this is Grover with Blue Collar Codes. Thank you for joining.